This video is about solving equations containing rational expressions. It's the second video. We're going to be doing the same examples, in fact. It's just a slightly different method. Instead of getting the common denominator in all of our terms in our equation, we're going to multiply each of the terms in the equation by the common denominator. And what this will do for us is it will get rid of all of our fractions. Our first example, 4x over 5 minus 8 equals x. So the common denominator, and actually the least common denominator, is 5. It's the only denominator we have there. And so this is the number that we can multiply everything by that will get rid of all of our fractions. So we'll have 4x over 5, and you can actually write the 5 as a fraction if that helps you, and then minus 8 times 5, and it's equal to x times 5. So each of these terms in this equation get multiplied by 5. When we multiply 4x over 5 by 5, the 5's cancel and we're just left with this 4x. Whoops. And then minus 8 times 5 is 40, and then x times 5 is 5x. Now we want to gather all the x's up on one side of the equation and the plain old number stays by itself. So we're going to subtract the 4x from both sides. And when we do that, 5x minus 4x is x, and it's equal to this negative 40 here. Always remember to do a visual check to make sure that our answer doesn't cause us to divide by 0, and since there's no x's in denominators here, our negative 40 is going to work. In our next example, x plus 5 over 4 plus x plus 5 over 2 equals x over 8. We want the least common denominator, and so that's the smallest thing that 4, 2, and 8 will divide evenly into, and that number is 8. So 8 is the number that will get rid of all three of these fractions, and it's the smallest thing that will accomplish that. We have x plus 5 over 4, and we're multiplying that by 8, and again you can write it as a fraction if that helps you visually. And then x plus 5 over 2 times 8 equals x over 8 times 8. 4 goes into 8 twice, so this 4 cancels, and we'll be left with a 2 on top, giving us 2 times x plus 5. 2 goes into 8 4 times, that leaves us with plus 4 times the quantity x plus 5. These 8's cancel, and we'll be left with just an x on the right side. Now we need to distribute the 2, giving us 2x plus 10. Distributing the 4 gives us 4x plus 20, and it's equal to x. Now we need to combine our like terms. 2 and 4 is 6, so that's 6x, and then we have 10 and 20, so that's plus 30, and it's equal to x. Again, we want to gather all the x's up on one side of the equation, so we're going to subtract this 6x from both sides. This leaves me with negative 5x equals 30, and then the last thing to do is divide by negative 5. And that gives me x equals negative 6. Again, do a quick visual check to make sure that this negative 6 won't cause us to divide by 0 when we replace the x's in our original equation with it. And we don't have any x's in our denominator here, so the solution will be just fine. Example C, 4 over x minus 4 plus 4 over 2x minus 8 equals 6. I can factor a 2 out of the 2x minus 8. That leaves me with 2 times x minus 4. And we need to find the LCD now. And so we have an x minus 4 here and 2 times x minus 4 here. So our LCD is going to be 2 times x minus 4. So we'll multiply each of our terms by our LCD. When we do this first multiplication, the x minus 4's cancel. That leaves us with 4 times 2, or 8. In this multiplication, the 2 and the x minus 4 will cancel, and we'll just be left with 4. And here we have 6 times 2, which is 12, and then times the x minus 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. That gives us 12 equals 12 times x minus 4. Last time we did this example, we distributed this 12. You can, however, divide both sides by 12. These 12s then will cancel, and that will leave us then with 1 is equal to x minus 4. And then the last step would be to add 4 to both sides, giving us x equals 5. Again, do a quick visual check. Will this x equals 5 cause us to divide by 0? And our denominator here was x minus 4, and this one is 2 times x minus 4. So the only thing that might cause us a problem would be 4. So x equals 5 is the solution for this example. Negative 5x over 3x plus 3. We can factor this 3x plus 3 as 3 times x plus 1. Equals 2x over 6x plus 6, and we can factor the 6x plus 6 as 6 times the quantity x plus 1, and then plus 6x minus 4 over x plus 1. We need to find our LCD. We have a 3 and a 6, so we need 6 because it has to, these two terms have to divide into our LCD evenly, and then we also need the x plus 1. Now we're going to multiply each of the terms in this by our LCD. Now when we do our first multiplication, the x plus 1s will cancel. And then also the 3 goes into the 6 twice. We'll be left with a 2 up on top. Negative 5x times 2 is negative 10x. Equals, we have 6x plus 1 in the denominator, so both the 6 and the x plus 1 will cancel, so that will be equals 2x. And the last multiplication, the x plus 1s will cancel, and we'll be left with plus 6 times x, 6x minus 4. Now we need to distribute this 6. That gives me negative 10x equals 2x plus 36x minus 24. We have to add our two like terms together, 2x and 36x. That gives me negative 10x equals 38x minus 24. Now we need to subtract 38x from both sides. I'm just going to write that down here. And negative 10x and negative 38x is negative 48x. And it's equal to negative 24. And one more step, and that's to divide by negative 48 on both sides, leaving us with x equals 1/2. Again, you need to make sure that you check and see that this 1/2 won't cause us to divide by 0, and the only number that would cause us to divide by 0 in this example is negative 1. So our x equals 1/2 is our solution. The next example here, 2t plus 3 over t minus 1 minus 2 over t plus 3 equals 5 minus 6t over t squared plus 2t minus 3. We can factor this t squared plus 2t minus 3. It factors as t plus 3 times t minus 1. Then we need to find our LCD. We have a t minus 1 and a t plus 3 here, and the same thing in this last expression. And so that's our LCD, t plus 3 times t minus 1. So we're going to multiply everything in our equation by our LCD, t plus 3 times t minus 1. When we do this first multiplication, the t minus 1s will cancel. That leaves me with 2t plus 3 times t plus 3. When we do this second multiplication, the t plus 3's cancel, so I have negative 2 times t minus 1, and it's equal to, when we multiply this last thing, both the t plus 3 and the t minus 1 will cancel, leaving us with 5 minus 6t. We need to do FOIL here. 2t times t is 2t squared. 2t times 3 is 6t. 3 times t is 3t. And 3 times 3 is 9. Now we need to distribute our negative 2. That gives us negative 2t plus 2. And it equals 5 minus 6t. Next, we have to gather up our like terms. We have 2t squared, and it's the only t squared term we have. And then we have 6t and 3t is 9t, minus 2t is 7t. And we have 9 and 2, which is 11. And that's equal to 5 minus 6t. Since this is a quadratic, which means that we have this t squared term here, when you're solving quadratics, you always want 0 on one side of your equation. So we're going to subtract the 5 and add the 6t to both sides. That will give us 2t squared plus 13t plus 6, and it's equal to 0. We need to factor this and then set those two factors equal to 0. 2t squared, the only way to factor that is 2t and t. And then we need to factor the 6. It can factor as 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. And because I need such a big number in the middle, I'm going to guess that I'm going to need to use 1 and 6. So I'll put a 1 and a 6 in here and then just check. When I do my inners, I'll have 1t. And then when I multiply the outers, I'll have 12t. And 1t plus 12t does give us the middle term that we need. And these both need to be addition, because we need a plus 1t and a plus 12t here. And then this is equal to 0. So then we would set 2t plus 1 equal to 0, subtract 1 from both sides. That gives us 2t equals negative 1, and then divide by 2. So we get t is equal to negative 1/2. Then also set the t plus 6 equal to 0, subtract 6 from both sides, and that leaves us with t equals negative 6. Again, we need to do a visual check. Just make sure that the values that you got for t will not cause you to divide by 0. If one of them does, then you have to cross it out and it won't be a solution. And the only two numbers that won't work in our original equation are negative 3 and positive 1. Negative 3 would cause this to be 0, and dividing by 0 then, and then positive 1 will cause this one to be 0, which would cause us to divide by 0. Our last example here, negative 2 over m plus 5 minus 3 over m minus 5 equals 15 over m squared minus 25. M squared minus 25 is the difference of two perfect squares, so that will factor as m plus 5 times m minus 5. Always find your LCD so that we can get rid of our fractions by multiplying by our LCD. And these two fractions have m plus 5 and m minus 5, and the last one has m plus 5, m minus 5. So that's what our LCD is. So we're going to multiply everything in our equation by our LCD. Okay, so when we multiply this first term by our LCD, m plus 5, m minus 5, the m plus 5's cancel. That will leave us with negative 2 times m minus 5. When we multiply the second term, the m minus 5's cancel, and we'll be left with minus 3 times the m plus 5. When we multiply this last term, both m plus 5 and m minus 5 cancel, and we're left with 15. We need to distribute the negative 2, giving us negative 2m plus 10, and then distribute the negative 3. That gives us negative 3m minus 15, and it's equal to 15. Combining like terms, we have negative 2m and negative 3m, that's negative 5m. And 10 minus 15 is negative 5. We need to gather up all the constants over here on the right, so we'll add 5 to both sides, giving us negative 5m equals 20, and then divide both terms by negative 5. This gives us m equals negative 4. And then again, just do a visual check, making sure that this solution won't cause you to divide by 0, and it won't. And that's the end of our lecture on solving equations by multiplying by the common denominator to get rid of our fractions. Let me know if you have any questions.